Hey, so earlier today, I did a social media post that talked about how action was the answer. And I realized that I was being a little bit of a hypocrite because for some time now, I've liked the idea of starting a podcast and I haven't done it because, well, basically because I was scared. What if no one listens to it? What if no one's interested? What if people think I'm a bit of a dick? And I realized that none of that really matters, does it, in the grand scheme of things? And not long ago, I actually was lucky enough to do a keynote talk for a big group of people, in fact, for my coach, Paul Mort's clients. And a lot of people really liked what I said. So that was a bit of a kick at the backside. Just say some stuff, talk about some stuff that I think is important and that I'm really passionate about, and do it in a format that isn't as limiting as social media. I don't have to cram it all into 60 seconds of making one point and missing all the nuance out. So here we are. Here's the podcast. No idea what it's going to be called, if it's even going to have a name, but ultimately it's going to be based around my business, which is Reignite Coaching. So on that note, for anyone who doesn't know me, my name's Jemma. I'm Jemma Whitlam, and I run a coaching service called Reignite Coaching. And I am a personal trainer and a life coach. And for quite some time, I have struggled to say those things to people. I've struggled with the idea of that being my job title. And I'm not even really sure why, other than it maybe felt like it sounds a little bit, I don't know, pretentious, or like I'm just not sure that anyone properly knows what it is anyway. So it's made me really hang back and not talk about it much. So here is my chance to talk about it, kind of to myself, not knowing if anyone's ever even going to hear this or not. So here we go. So why did it all start? How did this all begin is, I suppose, the first question. And it kind of started 7 years ago when I had my first child. And I suddenly realized that I'd taken my strength and my fitness and all of those things very much for granted. I was quite sporty at school as I grew up. I've ridden horses pretty much my whole life. And until that point, and in fact, until a couple of years ago, and it still is to an extent, my job was teaching people to ride horses and riding horses myself. And I competed to quite a high level. So that, along with playing basketball and at university and a bit of netball, and playing basketball after I finished university for a local men's team, meant I just like activity is just something I do. But in all that time, I've never really been a gym goer. I've never really trained properly for strength or for any real reason. As far as I was concerned, kind of training in the gym was something that athletes did, or bodybuilders, or or maybe people who didn't have an active lifestyle. They went to the gym to create that activity. Where I was walking thousands of steps a day. I was riding at one point. I was riding up to sort of 13 horses per day, and I was playing sport in the evenings. So really, what did I need to go to a gym for? Ah, yes, how naive I was. So the only time I really went to a gym was I had my cruciate ligament reconstructed when I was about 22, and I had to do my rehab then. So gyms didn't have the greatest, most positive connotations in my head. And then I trained a little bit with a little bit at university, just went to the gym occasionally. I'll let Minnie's going to get in on the podcast look as well. I trained a little bit at university. I went to the gym occasionally, but again, mostly cardio stuff because I didn't really have a clue what I was doing. And I then used to go, oh, then we had some really bad snow once, and I was climbing the walls because I couldn't ride, couldn't do very much. So I went and joined a gym just to like get rid of some energy and just to burn off some of that kind of unexpended energy that I wouldn't normally have, because I think I was driving Chris bonkers. And then the next time was because I trained with a friend of mine who I played basketball with, one of the guys from basketball. I used to go and head to their gym. And really, that's all I've done. So I never expected to be somebody who would train regularly, let alone become a personal trainer. So yeah, as I say, it all starts kind of 7 years ago when all of a sudden I kind of felt like some of that was taken away from me. Had a slightly complicated pregnancy and a slightly traumatic birth experience, I suppose, which I might cover at some point in the future, but I'm not going to go into too much now. So all of that left me then with, I've been very open about this, with prolapse, which I had both a cystocele and a rectocele. And that left me feeling kind of quite broken and quite worried about my future and what that was going to hold. And obviously Google, good old Dr. Google, wasn't actually that helpful because it told me lots of things I wasn't going to be able to do. And then I was very lucky. I found a fabulous women's health physio and went for a mummy MOT. And to be fair, that did kind of get me back on the road to recovery. Lady called Jemma in Peterborough. I think it was special. I must look up the name and I will make sure I tag her or something in it, because she was an absolute lifesaver. I cannot credit her enough with the support that I got from her. Not just physically helping me to like recover from the prolapse and knowing what to do about it, but mentally and emotionally, the kind of impact it had had on me. So that was then. And I sort of felt like I was pretty much coming out the other side of that. And then I went and had a second child 4.5 years ago. And I had another slightly complicated pregnancy and another slightly, the birth wasn't quite as bad, I suppose, but that was mainly because they had things on hand to make sure that the same things that had happened the first time didn't happen again. But I came out of that birth in a lot of pain and prolapse feeling worse and like very overweight compared to anything I'd ever experienced before. I'm just feeling really lost. And then there followed a year of quite severe postnatal depression, which was undiagnosed. So I still sometimes find it a bit weird to say that, but I had postnatal depression and I felt quite a lot of shame around that, which I think a lot of other people do too. So all of these things kind of combined to make me realise how much I'd taken my body in particular and my strength and my fitness for granted. And I started sort of training fairly regularly when Dexter was maybe 4 or 5 months old, 5 months old, something like that. And I wouldn't say I've been 100% consistent since then, but I've stayed sporadically consistent, if that's not too much of an oxymoron, ever since then. And I've at least known it's important. So I've tried quite a few things on the run through that. I've tried some of the short programs that I've bought, like more generic. I tried one of the cheap sort of monthly, allegedly bespoke training plans for you with a coach, but it's never the same coach. And it was fine to start, but when it didn't really do the job. I've tried going it alone. I've tried working with a couple of different coaches and just played with quite a few different things. So then, because of the riding and because I'm not going to, I make no bones about it, because of the fact that I didn't feel like being a riding coach was fitting into my life quite as well, because a lot of the work was evenings and weekends. And I had a child at school now, and that was hard to navigate around those hours. So I actually requalified first as a sports massage therapist, interestingly. And I do actually have my own little massage studio at home, which once Dexter is at school in September, I will be pushing a little bit more as well, because I really enjoy that side of things. And then I was really quite keen to do my personal training qualification. It had been on my mind for a while, and then I met a guy called Dave Sanders, who was a personal trainer for riders, and then he ran a course for people to become personal trainers, but aiming it really at equestrians, at horse riders. And I thought that's what I wanted to do. I thought that was, that'd be quite cool, because I'd been coaching for a long time. I'd seen a lot of these riders really struggling with balance and with coordination and with strength and with being unable to, I'd be asking them to do something while they're riding. And actually, it wasn't that they didn't want to, it's that actually physically they couldn't do it. They couldn't quite make the connection, or they didn't quite have the strength, or, whatever it was to do the thing. So I was like, okay, this would be cool. So I did the qualification and I really enjoyed it. And I really loved learning all about those things. And then, because I'd had all this stuff going on postpartum, I realised that I really cared a lot about women understanding more about their bodies. Not just women, to be fair, everybody, just understanding more about their bodies, understanding more, especially with the women, about their pelvic floor, about the fact that leaking postpartum isn't just something that has to happen, about the fact that strength training isn't just for people who want to be bodybuilders or are doing, some sort of pro athlete stuff, sport, whatever, but that equally strength training, yes, there's a lot of nuance around it. And yes, to some extent, to build strength and to build muscle, you do have to lift heavier weights. You can't just lift like weights for 10 million reps. Actually, there's some evidence that maybe you can, but generally speaking, it is seen that, lifting heavier weights is good for us. But equally, I've then seen so much of the stuff out that then is almost putting off some women from starting, because they're like, well, if I don't lift really heavy weights, it's not really worth it, and I don't want to do that. So then they just back off even more. And I just think there's a middle ground. I just think there's a piece missing for women who are just starting to train. They don't necessarily want to go and get a personal like best in a deadlift straight away. They don't even want to go and deadlift a barbell. They don't want to touch a barbell to begin with. Like, they just want to know how to train in a way that is worthwhile, is going to get them the results, is going to help them avoid things like osteoporosis, sarcopenia as they get older, is going to support their body throughout, motherhood, into menopause, into old age. Aesthetics clearly is important to lots of people, but it's not just about that. We can want to lose a bit of weight or change our body composition a little bit or whatever it is you want, but the underlying thing for me is I want to be able to do stuff. I want to feel capable. I want to feel strong. I want to feel fit. I want to be able to run around with my kids. I want to be able to ride my horses for as long as possible. I want to feel like I don't get injured easily. I want to be harder to kill. I want to be fit. I want to be healthy. They're the things that are, would I also like to slightly get rid of the last bit of the, baby belly? I mean, yeah, but it's not an obsession. Like it would be a side effect of doing the things that are going to give me the life. And since I joined Paul's Inner Circle, which is this coaching group, which is sort of life coaching and business coaching, I have climbed Mount Snowdon overnight. I have done a hike on the Jurassic Coast. I have run a half marathon, all sorts of stuff. Sorry, slight change of location because Chris came out with shopping. Yeah, I've done all sorts of stuff that I wouldn't have physically been able to do. In fact, I remember feeling quite emotional when I finished the hike on the Jurassic Coast, and we did this swim at the end, and it was kind of the first physical thing I'd done like that since I'd had Dexter, and I genuinely wasn't sure if I was going to be able to do it. I didn't really know how fit or strong I was now. So I remember being quite emotional about that and it feeling like quite a big deal to me. So at that point then, I realised that there was just this, like a bit or I hadn't seen enough of it anyway, a bit missing, like the educational side of fitness, but done in a way that's kind of understandable and doesn't feel hard to get into and hard to, I don't know, get to grips with. There's so much information out there oh my God, there's so much information out there about everything, but in the fitness world about, the different diets you can do, the different nutrition things, the different ways of eating, the different types of training that women should be doing HIIT. No, they shouldn't be doing HIIT. They should be doing more cardio. They should be doing less cardio. They shouldn't run. They should be doing strength training, but only if it's really heavy. Like, by the time people have seen a lot of that information, they then just do nothing because it's so overwhelming and so confusing. So, yeah, I just thought if I can maybe be a little part of helping people to bust through that bullshit and find a way that works for them and just like get rid of all the complications. And that's coming from a 40-year-old woman with 2 kids who isn't a gym rat, like never was a gym rat. I train now because I like what it gives me, but I still don't get up and I'm like, yes, the one thing I always do is train. Like, you get some of the people, I've been in rooms with coaches who are just like, training is a part of who they are. And that's cool. Like, that is awesome that is a part of them. It is not a part of me. It never has been. It still feels like an effort. It still feels like another thing to fit in sometimes. So I get it. And they're like, you just got to treat it like training. Talk about turning up on social media or something. It's just like training. It's one of those things you just do. And I was like, it's what? One of those things you just do. No, that's not training for me. So I do understand that it can feel like another chore, another thing to fit in. But when you reframe it as to what it can get you and what it can do for you, it feels quite different. So that's kind of how this whole thing started. And interestingly, I am probably nowhere near as far along as I thought I would be, think I should be. and definitely not as far along as I could be, because obviously we've got 2 small children who take up a lot of time. We've got horses, and I've still been coaching the riding as well. And the other thing is, I'm going to be totally honest about this. I have kind of put a lot of limitations on what I think is possible for, someone like me at this stage of life who is starting something new. And I haven't shouted about it enough. I haven't talked about it enough. I haven't told people enough about what I'm doing and why and how I can help people. And, that's not for this to be a sales pitch in any way, but it's just interesting how, even while we can be aware of what we should be doing, of what we can do, of what we would advise somebody else to do, it's so easy to then just not do it. So I guess to some extent, this podcast, this thing I'm starting, is part of me just taking myself a bit more seriously in a very chilled out way, because I don't like to take myself too seriously. But I suppose it's more taking what I'm doing seriously, taking the business seriously, taking the kind of impact I could have more seriously. And I think it's that thing, isn't it? And like I said, taking at the beginning, I said, like, taking action is the only way to take a step forward. You can't think yourself like getting ahead. You can't think yourself into a transformation. You can't think yourself into making change or into doing something useful and impactful. And when I did the keynote talk a couple of weeks ago, and when people came up to me, men and women, women with children, women without children, like, even the stories I told in that talk may have seemed, and I was a bit worried that they might be too centered around women who have had children, there were men that came and spoke to me and said that something in it had hit them quite hard. There were women who have no children who came and said that there was something in it they really resonated with. There were women with children that did. There were men who were dads who said that I'd made them really rethink about, like, what their wife or partner, the mother of their child, had been going through. And it really made them step up into their role a little bit more, and been able to be a bit more supportive in some way. And it made me realise that actually me hiding, me saying that I'm not good enough or that I'm not supposed to be here, isn't doing anyone any favours. And I think it's the same for everybody. As a Brit, as an English person, we're naturally a bit self-deprecating, a little bit like fly under the radar, a little bit, hide behind humour, and don't want to think that, don't want anyone to think that we think we're good at what we do. But actually, who's that serving? Like, who's that helping? And I think that's, my first little thing for today. Yes, it's about fitness. Yes, I'll talk about, that kind of stuff. I'll probably share some of my experiences of coming back into fitness postpartum, and about why it was so important to me as well, and what made me take the step, what made me find the resources and the energy inside myself to do that. But actually, transformation is a mindset thing. Whether it's a physical transformation you want, or you want to change your life, you want to improve your relationships with people, you want to get a better job, you want to start your own business, like, it all comes from what's going on in our heads. It all comes from our thoughts about what's possible, what's not possible, what our beliefs are. And I really did harbour this belief that there were so many coaches already out there, that what if I didn't have a place? What if there's no room for me? What if everybody wants to work with somebody who's been a fitness coach or a personal trainer for longer than I have? And interestingly, that's where I touch on the life coaching thing. And again, the life coaching, so who has a life coach? Like, actually, I do. And I was like, I do. I work with a life coach. In fact, I work with a couple of coaches. Paul Mort being the first one I worked with and still work with. Yes, he does business stuff, but a lot of it's all around mindset. It's all about, thoughts and beliefs and limiting beliefs, and how to overcome all that kind of stuff as well. And I work with a fabulous lady called Julie Brown as well, who uh, is brilliant at what she does, and again, working through some of the same things. And hers is more around specifically building a coaching business. And I'm going to be totally honest about this. Yeah, I'm going to share this anyway, but I'll share, as well as the fitness and stuff. I probably will end up sharing some of the trials and tribulations of setting up a business. I've been self-employed for 18 years, like ever since I left university. But I realised there's still a lot I have to learn about business and about creating clients and about marketing and about sales and so much other stuff. And actually, it's kind of exciting when it's not being scary. And then another guy called Lewis Potts, he is also a fantastic coach. And he works with personal trainers, in particular, like online personal and in-person personal trainers. And he has loads of tools and like ways of working, helping coaches to help their clients to dig deeper into what's going on, into what is really happening when people can't stick to the plan or whatever it is. So I've been really lucky. I've been exposed to lots of different people, lots of different coaches within these scenarios, within these groups, these containers, whatever you want to call them, as well. And I realized that a lot of people don't even really know that support exists. That like life coaches are probably for, I don't know, high level CEOs of businesses who are trying to make loads and loads of money, and they probably have consultants and business consultants or whatever. I certainly never really thought that a life coach was for somebody like me, somebody just normal, if you like, somebody with, I don't know, that's not up there in the echelons of business or sport or whatever. So I never would have thought it was for me. So actually, again, if I can help people to understand and learn, help to pass on some of what I've learned and I'm still learning, and but not just the information, but how I've applied it to life, how I've applied it to my relationships, to my business, to my children, to even to my friendships, to everything. It's all applicable in how I sort of walk my talk, I suppose. If I'm going to talk about this, I also have to be walking the walk in the background and doing the things. And I don't get it right all the time. No one does. But sort of understanding that, like, coaching, it's not about like, and I think this is the thing. Coaching isn't about having like your own little hype team, your own little cheerleaders behind you. It can be that, but so much of coaching is about helping people to sort of realize their potential, to kind of figure out what they want and then go and get it, and what the action is to go and do that, to help people find the answers that they already have most of the time. And I've seen so many people who have come through Paul's program, who have worked with Julie, who are working with Lewis currently, and I've seen them come in with sort of one mindset, with one way of looking at the world, with just these beliefs about life and about the world, that actually they've totally reframed and they've changed their lives. They've changed, I think. And I've had clients work with me as well who they have certain beliefs about themselves, or certain beliefs about their identity, or how they have to show up, or kind of what they're doing. And when we dig deeper into where those beliefs come from, and if if those beliefs are actually like helping them in any way, we find they're not. And people go on to get new jobs, to, I don't know, I'm trying to think what else people have done. But even with my sort of fitness clients, my strength and fitness clients, the coaching sessions often don't touch particularly on the training. Sometimes they touch a bit on nutrition, but it's mostly ends up being about their thoughts, about what's going on in their head, about what's stopping them. So, as I said, this is kind of just my chance to waffle on a little bit, get some stuff off my chest, hopefully maybe have some guests on and talk about some stuff that I find interesting. And yeah, just share the stuff that I've learned, that I'm learning, that I apply with anyone who's interested, if that is anybody. And again, it's me walking it's me walking the walk. It's me saying I'm going to do something and actually following through with it. So it's been great to get to know you, or for you to get to know me, maybe, hopefully, I don't know. And I think the plan is I'm going to try and show up once a week and just see what comes of it. If you watch this or listen to this and you find it at all interesting, then like hit the follow button, the subscribe button, and let me know if there's anything you'd particularly like me to talk about, if there's anything you'd particularly like to know about, whether it's fitness, whether that's postnatal, whether that's like anything about strength work, whether it's about mindset stuff, procrastination, overwhelm, imposter syndrome, confidence, self-belief, like all of those things are things that we talk about a lot, and I talk about a lot with my clients as well, and I talk about a lot with my coaches, or hear other people talking about a lot with my coaches. So yeah, let me know. It's been fun. I'll catch you soon.